Welcome back everyone to our online event, Learning to Be, Building Resilience in the Event Industry Labour Market in Europe. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. For those of you who just joined, I'm Stefanie Steuer, I'm the host for today, and we have now our 3 roundtable discussions coming up. In the first half of the day, we heard about some very interesting initiatives and projects that are going on currently in the EU, trying to facilitate learning and teaching in the event sector. And now in the following sessions, we have different people from the field. We invited educators, employers, researchers, European specialists, certification institutions and workers from the industry to come together and share their opinion on the current developments, especially considering certification in a post-COVID world. So in the 3 roundtable, we want to first explore more in depth what the current challenges of the industry are in Roundtable 1, then what the environment for validation and certification exists in order to increase mobility and transparency in the labour market. This will be Roundtable 2. And then what the future of the vocational educational training in the sector should or will bring about. This is Roundtable 3. So we are delighted to welcome our experts for the first roundtable right now, so they can share their experience and opinion on hiring and teaching or validating with us. So I will introduce them, and I want to remind you that you can ask questions at any time and I will post them to the discussion roundtable. So with that, I will start off with Dr. Alicia Klusek from the FOH Foundation. She's coordinator of the R&S Reaching Education Conference in Krakow from Poland. Then we have Randall Greenlee from the VPLT, the German Entertainment Technology Association. Our third participant is Christian Patzer, Head of Personnel at Leyendecker. Leyendecker is a full-service provider for the event industry, also from Germany. Then we have Mrs. Tina Rapp from the German Confederation of Skilled Crafts. She coordinates the Valicom program. And last but not least, we have Willem Westerman from the VVM, the Association of Event Makers from the Netherlands. So, and with that, I will give the opportunity to all the discussion panelists to also introduce themselves. And we will start with Mrs. Rapp. Mrs. Rapp, you're leading the Valicom and the Valicom Transfer, which is coordinated by the German Chamber of Commerce and Skilled Crafts. Could you briefly explain the background of the Valicom project to our audience?
Yes, of course. So hello, everybody. So I'm responsible for the project Valicom. Valicom is a project or initiative of the Chambers of Skilled Crafts, the Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and the Chambers of Agriculture. And in 2012, the EU Council recommended to every member state that they have to establish validation procedures in their countries. So in 2015, the Ministry of Education and Research and the 2 umbrella organizations of the Chambers of Skilled Crafts and the Chambers of Commerce and Industry initiated our project. And the goal of our project in the first phase was to develop and test a validation procedure so that people who have no vocational qualification but work experience can get a certificate which states that they have the same or the similar qualification a person has who has the formal qualification. Now we are 30 chambers in Germany which offer validation procedure for over 30 different vocational qualifications. And one word about our process, how it looks like. So the main characteristics are that we are comparing the competencies of the person with the vocational qualification. So because there are standard sets and everyone knows at the labor market what a person has to be able to with this qualification. And we are using practical tests to assess if the people are competent. And third, we can also assess only parts of a qualification. So for example, if we have a hairdresser who is can do only dyeing or cutting hair, we say, okay, you can do only these 2 parts of the qualification in the assessment. And then we state on the certificate at the end that the person is able to do hair cutting and dyeing hair. So I hope that will help you to understand what we are doing in our project.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rapp. We will continue with Mr. Patzer. Mr. Patzer is Head of Personnel at Leyendecker, a full-service technical provider. He's responsible for workplace security, education and training. And my question for you, Mr. Patzer, could you illustrate your function at the company and provide some of the biggest issues you face in the hiring processes?
So, thanks for the invitation and introduction. So at Leyendecker, our main activity are corporate events and exhibitions. We got about 100 employees and 23 apprentices in 6 jobs. I come from project management, and now I'm in training and health and safety. From our view in hiring process, main issues. First, our requirements are not very comparable to other industries. For example, even the electricians have different tasks and responsibilities than in other industries. Then many candidates don't have a qualification, a formal qualification, although they have decades of experience on jobs. That means they are often underrated, or they only get jobs by reference, and that makes a labor market small for both sides. And the third point is we have a very dynamic business, and so it's a staff requirement. The training with the Chamber of Commerce qualification is main part of our recruiting, but it's also a very long-term planning. So now we are planning for 2024 and 23, and that's a very long-term planning, and especially in these times.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patzer. Our next participant is Willem Westerman. Mr. Westerman, you're Executive Secretary for the Association of Event Makers, the VVM, and full-time involved in many important developments concerning events in the Netherlands. Please explain to the audience briefly the work of your organization and what your experience with the current validation systems are.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. I feel, well, we have a lot of work to do, but a lot of work is being done at this moment. And looking at the work, in Holland, we decided in our association to work together, which seems very logical, but normally we're just doing our projects and not looking at all those problems around us. And those problems are there. Of course, all kinds of problems, but all kinds of things you can work on together. In our association, we got the venues together with the event suppliers, together with the organizers, because if you don't talk to each other, you are working together, but you have to talk to each other about the workforce we have in front of us, especially if we look into education and the lifelong education of our people. We have to see that we got employers with a certain amount of tasks they have and the money they have to spend on education, but we got really a lot of self-employed people. And by looking at those self-employed people, which is really a difficult situation if you are self-employed now regarding these times, we have to help also those self-employed people, and that must be done by choosing the right industry standards and telling people that the standard is helping them to get enough money and enough work. I feel we really are making great steps in that, but we have to tell each other that making those steps are necessary. And then the biggest issue we got in Holland, but I feel the same for you, we have to prove that we are an industry. It's really looking into all those very, other industries, they really are accepted as being a problem now, and the solution is there. And we have to find a solution ourselves at this moment. And every day you will recognize that as the things happening now. Every day we got a new person asking, why should I give you money? And why is that self-employed person from you needing money? And well, we tell them we don't not only need money, we are an industry and we need education, and we're going to work together on that. And for that, well, we got a lot of work to do. We are doing a lot of work with the schools, very important, because they are not only working for the young people, but also working for all the people looking into that, to creating courses, creating knowledge, and bring it to the internet, for instance. So I feel we got a lot of things developing together. Let's work together.
Thank you very much, Mr. Westerman. This will take me to our last participant, Dr. Glusek. You are a member of the FOH Foundation and coordinator of the RNS Written Conference in Krakow. As such, you are very active internationally. What are your experiences with the current system of competence recognition in Europe?
How to start it? Maybe I will explain a little bit about the foundation and how we emerged, and this is how you can kind of understand why the experiences are very few and not that successful so far. FOH Foundation was established in 2017, so it's a little bit of 3 years of practice of experience, and we were created because there is a lack of vocational training and any certification programs in Poland. And of course, we found that learning from on the experiences of others and about other existing validation or certification programs will be useful, and also not like in terms of costs and in terms of any time-consuming activities of developing our own system. It made sense to cooperate with established organizations and learn from practitioners and from other organizations what are the existing practices in terms of the continuing learning for the adults in our industry. And what we would like to introduce in Poland is to kind of teach people accordingly to the European standards, so they can certify themselves or they can validate their skills, their craft, and how they are useful still in the larger context, in larger market of the whole European Union. There are Polish companies and Polish freelancers are employed everywhere, I would say. They work in other countries and they work for European companies, obviously not now because of the COVID, but they often, due to the lack of certificates, they kind of, I wouldn't say that they diminish the standards, but it's not a right way to compete in terms of the pricing and the salary that they get. So the experience, to ramp up, the experience is very few. We are starting to be more included in the European schemes, and we are willing to learn more.
Thank you very much, Dr. Klusek. And of course, there's also Randall Greenlee in the call from the VPLT. We already saw him in the morning giving his talk. So Randall, maybe you also want to say a few words before we start off the discussion?
Sure. Of course, the VPLT is involved in a lot of European projects, but also in connecting people. We've been involved in the European educational process for about 7 to 8 years, as a matter of fact, more like 9 years, because we did start doing our Erasmus projects about 9 years ago. And of course, have met very good partners, but we're also involved outside of the Erasmus project. For example, Dr. Glusek, I met at the rigging conference in Krakow, because we are very concerned about the future of the industry. And that's why I'm very happy that we have these people in the roundtable today. I would like to immediately then also ask a question to Ms. Rapp from the Valicom, because she is here involved in Germany also in this actually an EU idea of the validation and certification of non-formal, but also of things outside of the formal qualification process. And Ms. Rapp, you have how many different vocations do you currently have? You said 30, I think, right? Is that right? So you have 30 at the moment. How long does it take to have a new vocation into the process?
So I think it will take 6 to 9 months. So first we have to also, so the first step is to speak with the social partners. So to say, do you think it's necessary to put this in a validation offer, that we put this vocational qualification on our list, that we will offer validation procedures for this qualification. And when the social partners and chambers agree that that's necessary, then we define the different task areas. So that, as I mentioned before, that we everyone has the chance to do only parts of the formal qualification. And so for this, we make workshops with the social partners to define the framework. And after that, our chambers will search for the assessors. So and not only find and also train. The assessors are normally persons which are working in the formal qualification system, so in the WET system. So they know the standards, they know the apprenticeship, and they know what the apprentices are learning. But we have to train them how to do validation and to do the assessment. And then, of course, we also have to find participants. And so, so that's also, I think, a big part, to find people who wants to do the validation, because I think only very few people know that there is the possibility to validate their skills.
I think we saw that in Mark Brown's presentation this morning, that we're pretty far behind in this idea of validating certain competences. It's fairly new and worldwide. And from what Mr. Westermann was talking about the people that are self-employed, that's one of the problems. You were talking about the social partners. Well, in most cases, we don't have unions, and we don't have employers associations either. So that kind of complicates it. But I'm going to ask Christian, who, by the way, Leyendecker, proud that they're a member of VPLT, in VPLT, would you accept something like a Valicom certification from a partial standpoint? Would that be something that would help you in the hiring process?
Yes, it would help, because the formal vocation is not very suitable for professionals, or for self-employed people. It has to be a standard there, and Valicom would be a standard. And so, yes, I think it would be help, and it would be a good completion.
And Willem, just to ask again, I know a little bit about the Dutch system, and of course we work together with Erik de Ruyter, and of course in Hilversum with the training center there, and OSAT. Is there something like that set up in the Netherlands as well, where I could get some sort of qualification if I'm coming from outside the country? A little bit already talking about mobility, it's another roundtable, but is there something in place in the Netherlands that's similar to Valicom?
It's a little bit starting to exist. And one of the difficulties of our entertainment industry is that everything that's being brought to us, we want to invent ourselves. Which means that if you tell me that you are German and you are very good at certain things and you bring it to me, I will always create a kind of committee to try to look at it again and see if things that have been brought to us are valid for us, because of course in Holland we are different. And the great thing about ETA and other things is that we are wrong in that, but that's our mind. Our mind has a twist that we are creating our own future and we have to do it ourselves. No, there are people doing good things. All my OSAT people are really running good things together with you, and together we have to find out all those things that have been found already. And if you bring it in the right language, which is not only English, but also with the nice images and the right attitude and the right, it's not how to bring it to our people, then I think we got a European thing running, and then we can easily adapt it. But every school in Holland is the same, has the same attitude. Why are you bringing something to me? I have to invent it myself, including the books we're writing, including the courses. And more, in a few years, it will be more and more too. But more and more, we are saying, hey, let's make it a national thing. And hey, make it an international thing. Why not? Because we're doing the same.
That sounds like a good advertisement for the Erasmus project, which I certainly like. And I would simply want to say, also from a German perspective, I think Ms. Rapp would agree with me here. Of course, we often have that national sort of look at things, because countries do have their own traditions. But perhaps with Brexit, and that's going to move me to a question to Alicia, because I know that at the rigging conference, the National Rigging Certificate, which is of course comes from Plaza, which is a association that we also are associated with. We work with them together closely. They have a certification for riggers. Those are, by the way, I hope that everybody here is enough from our business that they know that a rigger is someone that does the climbing with the trusses and everything, a very special type of niche qualification, which is also a problem in our industry. We have a lot of niche qualifications. I think Christian was also saying the electricians, for example, have to know things that a normal electrician knows nothing about. So we have these niche qualifications and competences. But I presented, I think, the level 2 rigger from the German system, the EGVW system. What is the perspective from Poland? Are you looking for a European type of competence matrix that you can say that's what we need, or would you prefer looking at the national qualifications?
No, definitely for us, although this creation of your own standard and of your own certification is tempting. I like to dig into stuff as well on my own. But from the riggers, for example, that this is a community who really expressed and stressed the importance of getting some sort of certificate that is internationally recognized, because this is also a niche vocation, niche professionals who really are internationally employed. They go all over. I think their services are highly in demand in many countries at the same time in the season. So from the very practical perspective, they are very practical. They want to get something, one or no more than two certificates of validations that give them some sort of a passport or certificate or a validation document that they are capable of doing the rigging. So this is why they kind of looked into the German standards and into the UK standards. They sort of also take into consideration the monetization. If they have to consider different standards, something that they will give them more opportunities in different markets, in getting a job, it kind of raises the attractiveness of a certificate. And this idea of validation could be very interesting for them as well, because it's very people who work for the industry in Poland, they're coming from different generations, and definitely I see that the younger generation want to have proper education and proper documents. People who work there for 20 or 30 years, they will probably rather look for a validations process, because it's not for them. They know everything. So we need to also, I think it will be smart to look into different generations of people and different services that they provide, because this can be varied. The need for them to look for some international standards and international in education and in certification. Does it kind of answer your question?
Yeah. Like I was saying, I think I wanted to make the point that there's a lot of countries in the European Union that don't have certifications in our area. And perhaps also to give some comment on that, Chris van Guttem, who's in the TBFAT project and has already made 2 presentations today, in one of his studies, they found that basically in the entertainment technology industry or the event technology industry, you can basically say that the competences that are needed, about 70% is international. It doesn't make any difference where you are. About 70-75% is a basis competence that has nothing to do with a culture, or, and this is the reason why we have 25 to 30%, the laws. we still have in the member states of the European Union, we have local, fire code regulations. We have local building codes. In other words, if you're working in Germany, you have to, of course, adhere to the German building codes. If you want to work in the Netherlands, it's the same thing. You have to adhere to those. So that would be knowledge or competences that is very specific to the country you're working in. But basically, and this sort of supports what Willem Westermann has also been saying, 70% to 75% of what you need to be able to do is the same everywhere. I'm sure Mr. Rapp has probably had that experience in other vocations, seeing what can be validated or not. But I'd like to ask Christian, because I know Leindecker does a lot everywhere in Europe. What do you do with a rigger that has to work in France, but also in Spain, and maybe in Switzerland, that's only a part of the European Economic Area, not even a member state?
Yes, of course. Mostly we take our own technicians, and as a project management cares for local systems. And there it would be a great opportunity, I think, to have a kind of minimum requirements which we could use in business communication to local service providers or local companies. And I think it would be an opportunity for efficiency, because local outsourcing can be very flexible for a company like ours. So we have the scalability that we have great jobs and small jobs. And so local outsourcing can also be climate friendly. Yes, and so it's I think it would be an opportunity.
Stephanie, I think we have some questions from the audience, right?
I wanted to jump in. Thank you, Mr. Patzer. We have two questions from the audience already. And the first one is, I believe, for Mrs. Rapp. Can the German certification from Valicom be created together with other countries?
It's an interesting question. So right now, though we are only focused on the German vocational qualifications. But yeah, so if there's the possibility, so for example, we have in Germany also recognize the Recognition Law Act in Germany, so that if you have a vocational qualification from a foreign country, you can go to a chamber, and then they will check did the person learn the same, for example, in Poland, as we teach our apprentices in Germany. And when it's the same, they get the recognition. So they get stated, the person can do the same as someone who learned it in Germany. So this is a kind of recognition of foreign qualifications. But I think it would be really great if we have the same framework for the vocational qualifications, so the same standards. But I think it's a long way to go. And until we don't have this, I think we have to have a system that allows us to compare them and to say, yes, it's more or less the same, and to recognize them. And so also, for example, if it's a qualification from Poland, Mr. Patzer don't understand it in the first place. So we have to say, yeah, it's the same, or these are the difference. And then Mr. Patzer can say, okay, I can work with this person because he or she is competent and can do the same things I need in my company. So yeah, we have this transition phase where we have to have this translation. But validation is, I think, a good way to do so.
Thank you, Mrs. Rapp. The next question is for you, Mr. Patzer. How do you currently ensure that new employees meet your expectations? For example, that they are familiar with recent technology, etc.
Yeah, it's a very individual process, I would say. So, like I said, often new employees are also known. So already worked together. We met on jobs. Our industry is quite small, and so everybody, many people know each other. Qualifications, formal qualifications, are very very necessary, of course. And also, like Professor Brown called them badges for qualifications, are also a very good hint that somebody is into a project or into a technology. And so then we have to do it for ourselves. For new technologies, we have to ensure that the people are trained when they are there.
I might add to that, it's very interesting because Professor Braun this morning talked about micro-credentials, more or less. And that's a question I'd like to bring to Willem Westermann as well. You know, Mr. Rapp was also talking about, we have all these formal qualifications and they're very good. I mean, let's be honest, the EU has always said the apprenticeship program, this idea of learning on the job training, it's all very good. And I don't think anybody is saying that needs to be changed, you know, completely. But our businesses, and that's what we see in this question, you know, there's always technological advances. You know, when you're finished, you're not finished. Do you see the possibility for micro-credentials in the event industry? I mean, in the Netherlands, is there anything going on there that says we need this at the moment?
I really do feel we need good education, yes, but we also need the companies like Mr. Basser is explaining to do the proper job, because the most important for our working people is to be in companies that help them and help them develop themselves. And it is being done very well. And I hear from people running education at school, they like that, but that's really getting involved in the companies. That's what they want. That's why we have to help the companies also to work with those people and keep on working with them. And not everyone is the same. So we have to see, what are you going to do and how can I help you being in the company? We're working on that by creating standards. And for instance, we've been very busy in creating a standard for working at heights in the entertainment industry. And of course, you will say, hey, that's international, it's everywhere. And with us, people said, hey, but I'm already a climber number 3, and you are a rigger number 2, and everyone knows that. But no, we were not ready doing that. And now we're really helping the companies to keep it safe and not to create people running around with a lot of gear and climbing everywhere. Just to say, hey, guys, don't run around with all that gear. What are you going to do with the gear? Are you being trained? And if not, let's start training. First start training and then start working, instead of start working and then realize that you're just running around. A lot of our colleagues are too enthusiastic, and we have to take care of them. And that's something, by creating the standard, what are we doing in a certain way? How do we want to reach that standard? And how can I follow your steps in, being in that standard and doing your own thing in a safe way? We have to work there. Again, it's work. We have to look into those people. And now we got a standard number 1 and standard number 2 and standard number 3. And of course, it's looking like the international thing, and it's going to be the same. But we had to reinvent our working at height in the entertainment industry, because we did not have that in Holland. And I feel it's the same for you. We're doing a lot of things. We're very good at it, but we're doing it in a little bit different way from the logic people, the logic people from building companies, logic electrical people. And we are all doing it in a temporary way, running around in our own way. And we have to realize the differences in that and train our people in that.
I think that's a point you just made. It really is one of the challenges of our industry is although we are big in a way, I think that was said earlier too, this question of, I think you said that, Willem, you know, to get the message out, we are a big industry. But since we're so heterogenic, you know, Christian Passer was saying they do small events, big events, you know, worldwide, cultural events, and nobody has really, you know, got the dots together. So it's been kind of difficult also on that point to say, even though we are important in a big industry, some of the vocational educational training, or let's say the competences that we have to have, are not there for a lot of people. I don't know how many riggers there are in Europe, to be honest, but I would think there are less than 5,000, at least a level 3. So we are talking about a very small workforce. Alicia, I want to come back to that. What William was talking about, or what you were talking about earlier, about this sort of generation change, because that's something we're talking, about needs for the industry. I see this as well in our membership. We have the older colleagues that came in. We call it rock and roll sometimes. Came in because they wanted to get involved in the live music industry and were willing to work 28 hours a day. That's, right. And now we're having a different situation. And we know also from the human resource people and everything, the younger people, I heard this term, which I really like, is loya. Now this, you live only once, right? You only live once, YOLA, you only live once sort of attitude. They're not willing to come in and work, 14-hour shifts every day for six weeks or something. You really see this in Poland as well, that the younger generation coming up has a different view of the competences and perhaps also the way to work in the industry?
Yes, definitely. We have the same here. In terms of those who created the industry, they are from the generation of rock and roll, of people who kind of believe that this industry needs sacrifices, and definitely people from the age bracket like 20 up to 30. They tend to have a different point of view. They consider this as a vocation, as a job that requires, first of all, education, also preparation, some proper skills tested. And also, but those who work, the young generation who work, they are committed, they understand this is a different industry and they will never get something like 8 hours long day. They understand it, but they do not consider it as that it comes naturally in this industry. They kind of they are prepared. They are way smarter. Of course, it's a heterogeneous group, but some of them try to run more healthy lifestyle than the previous generations. They are more aware of that, of some costs included. And because of that, they are smarter also in terms of making their decisions, how they wish to build their own career. And those who we met in our trainings at the conference and at different groupings, they express definitely, and I would say it's half of the younger generation, that if they get vocational training, a proper certification, if they learn right way, they want to be paid as professionals, as not somebody who like the previous generations would say, oh, we do the gigs, we do the culture, it's fun, and we get paid. And so with this training, with certificates, definitely it builds up some sort of expectation that they need to be treated as employees or business partners in terms of freelancers, and that there are some rewards coming from that. A different treatment sometimes, and better payment.
I think that's something that we can see everywhere. I mean, every industry that sort of matures, and that's the case with the event industry, we're maturing, and we have these processes that come into place because, like I said, sometimes we have the wrong image. I've talked often to customers when I was still in the private sector that thought that the event technology people were the ones that just unloaded the trucks, right? And the lights just sort of somehow magically get up into the ceiling. But we're just about at the end of the time of the roundtable. I'm seeing that we don't have many questions from the audience. One last question maybe on everybody. Does anybody think that the COVID pandemic is going to cause problems getting good, competent people? Just start with you, Alicia, and then we'll move back through the, what do you think?
I totally agree that so many people left the industry, and because of the problems that they faced at the early stages of the COVID lockdowns, that there was no aid, no help. they decided not to come back. That is too much of the sacrifice and too much of the costs. And they don't get into this rock and roll lifestyle. They often have already families, so therefore it's too risky. And now when I want to organize some events, I have a lot of stuff for you. I have a lot of LED and all this, machines. I have everything, but I need to check if I'm going to have people for the gig that you wish me to kind of carry on. And that was something like, I need to check it out. There is no problem with this, with the machines, with equipment, but I need to check out whether I will be having people for you.
Christian, what I'm going to move on because of the time. Christian, what's this? Do you have a chance to get all your crews filled, or is it going to be difficult?
Yes, I agree. And additionally, there are there are coming less young people in training. So we have much less applications here. Because of this crisis, they think about if they start a career in an industry which is shut down. So that's additional. Yeah.
And Willem, what's it look like in the Netherlands? Have you heard similar things that people are moving away from the industry?
Absolutely, yes. We lost about 70 to 80% of our people, which is just huge. And we have to find them back. We have to tell them that, and not only tell them that we are proper employers and that we got great jobs to fulfill and that we need self-employed people, but we have to prove that. And for that, we need certainty, and for that, we need money, and for that, we need education. Well, the last thing is our aim today, but we really got a big problem in coming back in the same way. And when I tell people what is going to happen is that we're going back to 2008. And then no one knows what I'm saying, but then they think, hey, that's about 30 years. What happened 30 years ago? What were my thoughts at that moment? How were we employed? Where did I get my crew from? What were they able to do? And then you say, hey, I got a whole barn full of LEDs, etc. But where's the people to make it work, make it happen? We really got a big problem. I feel if we don't say, hey, we are good at what we're doing and we're getting a knowledge at being good, and we have to pay the people the right price because otherwise they're not going to work for us anymore.
It sounds like maybe the pay and let's put it this way, the people that are making events may finally understand that it is a quality job that is being done, and that requires, of course, the quality pay for the job.
Some people are just in love with us, but not everyone is in love with us. We have to find those fights again.
I know that Ms. Raap is not involved directly in the event or the event technology industry. But what are you hearing from, you're definitely in the industry in Germany as a whole. Are there other vocations where people have left the industry because of the COVID crisis?
Yes, of course. There are different industries with huge problems as well. For example, the retail sector is a big problem. But I think now validation can be a chance. Because if they're now unemployed, they have the time to do a validation and to get a certificate, which will then bring back to labor market, because then they have the paper. And in Germany, you need the paper. We are very formalized. And I think it's also a chance for employers, because to empower their own people and to say, I want to give you something back, that you stay at my company. They can say, okay, I support you to make the validation. So it's a kind of thanking their employees. So I think it's for both. Validation can be really a good thing. Yeah.
That's been an impression we've had as well in the crisis, that lots of people are going back to education, trying to take courses and trying to get themselves ready. But on the other hand, we also know that many people have left the industry. Stephanie, I think we're to 2:00, right?
Yes, thank you very much, Randall, and thanks to all of you for those very interesting insights and sharing your experiences. I think it's been very valuable for the audience as well. Again, big thank you. Let's stay in touch about further developments and about the ongoing projects. And have a good rest of the day.